A finance employee at a global company got invited to a video call. On the call were senior people from the company. Familiar faces, familiar voices. The kind of meeting where, if you work in finance, you sit up straight and pay attention. The request was urgent and confidential. Money needed to move. So the employee did what they were told. 15 transfers, 5 bank accounts, about $25 million. And later, they learned the detail that makes this story so unsettling. Every person on that call, except the employee, was fake. Not a fake email, not a bad link, not a typo in a domain name. Faces, voices, a live video meeting. The whole thing was generated or manipulated with AI. Seeing is no longer believing, and a lot of business payment processes were built back when it was. So today, I want to walk through what happened, why this is different from the scams most companies train for, and the two-step defense every business should write down before the next urgent request lands. Because the fix is not be better at spotting deepfakes, the fix is building a process where it does not matter how convincing the fake is. This story happened in Hong Kong in early 2024. At first, the company was unnamed. Police described a worker at a multinational firm who said they had been deceived into transferring about 200 million Hong Kong dollars, roughly $25 million, after joining a video conference with people posing as senior officers of the company. Later, the British engineering firm Arup confirmed it was the company involved. And that matters, because Arup is a global engineering firm with thousands of employees and major projects around the world. According to reporting on the case, the employee reportedly received a message that appeared to come from the company's CFO about confidential transactions. And the employee was suspicious. That is the part people miss. The first message did not instantly win. The employee had doubts. Then came the video call. The call had multiple participants. They looked like real company leaders. They sounded real. It had authority. It had urgency, and it had confidentiality. And that combination dissolved the doubt. The employee made 15 transfers to 5 local bank accounts. The scam was reportedly discovered only after the employee checked with the company's head office. Arup later said fake voices and images were used in the fraud, and that its financial stability, business operations, and internal systems were not affected. That last detail is important. This was not a classic hack the system story. It was a hack the workflow story. The attackers did not need to break into the bank. They needed one human being to believe the meeting was real long enough to follow instructions. And before anyone says, well, I would never fall for that, slow down. The useful question is not, would I personally be fooled? The useful question is, if my boss's face and voice appeared on a live call and asked for something urgent, would our processes still hold? Because confidence is not a control. Process is a control. Most people understand phishing in the old way: a weird email, a suspicious link, a sender address that is off by one letter. That version still exists, and it still works. But deepfake video and voice scams change the emotional experience. A message is easy to doubt. A person is harder to doubt, especially when that person has the right face, the right voice, the right job title, and the right pressure. That is why this case is not just a scarier phishing story. The email did not win. The call won. The call defeated skepticism, and AI is making that easier. Voice cloning no longer requires a movie studio. If someone has enough public audio of you, podcast interviews, webinars, earning calls, YouTube videos, conference panels, attackers may have material to imitate your voice. And yes, there is an irony here. If you're watching this video, there is now more audio of my voice on the internet than there was 10 minutes ago. Face manipulation has also moved fast. The quality varies, but the direction is obvious: more accessible, more realistic, and easier to use in real time. So if your defense is our team will notice anything that looks a little off, you're putting your money on a moving target. The fake gets better every month. Your process can get better today. This is where I would show a harmless demo, my own voice, clearly labeled on screen as an AI voice demo used with consent. Not a celebrity, not an employee, not anyone who did not agree to it. The point is not to teach anyone how to scam. The point is to make the risk real. Once people hear a synthetic voice that is close enough, This stops feeling like science fiction and starts feeling like what it is, a business operations problem. It touches finance, HR, payroll, procurement, legal, executives, assistants, board members, nonprofits, title companies, manufacturers, medical offices, anyone who can save money or change where money goes. You're not in the target pool because your company is famous. You are in it because your company has a payment workflow. The attack script usually has three ingredients: urgency, authority, and secrecy. Urgency sounds like, this has to happen today. Authority sounds like, the CEO is aware. Secrecy sounds like, do not loop anyone else in. Those ingredients are powerful by themselves. Together, they are dangerous. Add a face and a voice, and they become much more persuasive. That is why the defense cannot depend on one employee having perfect instincts in a stressful moment. The defense has to require the pause. Here is the core rule I would write into every business payment policy. The call that asks is never the call that confirms. If a request involves moving money, changing banking details, adding a new payment destination, or bypassing the normal process, it gets verified out of band. That is step one. Out of band verification means you confirm through a different channel that you initiate, not the phone number in the email, not the number it's sent in the chat, not the link in the meeting invite, not just reply to this thread. You use a known good number from your internal directory, vendor master file, CRM, banking records, or a contact record that existed before the request came in. If the CFO appears on a video call and says, "Wire this money," the response is, "Understood. I am going to call back on the known number to verify." That is not rude, that is the job. The beauty of this rule is that it does not care whether the video is real or fake. It does not require your finance team to inspect blinking patterns, audio compression, or pixel artifacts. It simply says, the channel that delivers the request cannot be the channel that validates the request. Step 2 is the two-person rule with thresholds. Over a certain dollar amount, 2 humans approve, period. And each approval has to be meaningful, not one person clicking approve because the other person said so. 2 people check the request against the policy. You can set the threshold based on your business. For one company, it might be $5,000. For another, $25,000. For another, any new vendor banking instruction regardless of amount. The exact number matters less than the principle. Large or sensitive payments do not move because one person was pressured in one channel. And there is no CEO exception. I'm going to say that again because this is where policies quietly fail. There is no CEO exception. The CEO exception is the vulnerability. If your policy says 2 approvals are required unless the CEO says it's urgent, then you do not have a 2-person rule. You have a 1-person rule with theater around it. Attackers impersonate authority because authority gets people to bypass process. So the process has to be stronger than the job title. There's also a low-tech add-on that works well for families and executive teams, a verbal code phrase. Not a password in a shared document, not something obvious like a birthday. Just a simple phrase known by the right people, used only to verify identity when something feels off. If a family member calls asking for emergency money, ask for the phrase. If an executive calls from an unfamiliar number with an unusual request, ask for the phrase and still follow the business process. This is not a replacement for out-of-band verification. It is an extra layer, and it costs nothing. Here is the part leaders have to own. You can write the best policy in the world, but if a junior finance employee is afraid to say, "I need you to verify this," the policy will fail. So leadership has to make the pause normal. Put it in writing, train it, practice it once. And the first time someone slows down a legitimate request because they are following the policy, do not embarrass them. Thank them, because that moment teaches everyone else at the company what the company actually values. If the reaction is, "Why are you wasting time? I said it was urgent," then the next employee learns the real rule. Ignore the written policy when someone powerful is annoyed. That is exactly what scammers want. The healthy culture sounds like this. "I can help with that. I am going to verify through the approved channel." No drama, no accusation, no debate about whether the person on the call is real, just process. So here's what I would do this week. First, write the wire rule. Any payment, banking change, or new destination over your threshold requires out-of-band verification through a known channel. Second, write the two-person rule. Over the threshold, 2 humans approved. No executive exception. Third, brief the people who can move money. Not a 2-hour training. 10 minutes is enough to start. Give them the phrase. The call that asks is never the call that confirms. Fourth, test it once. Send a friendly fake request internally. See what happens. Do not use it to shame anyone. Use it to find gaps in the process before a real attacker does. And fifth, make sure your executives are the loudest supporters of the rule. Because if the CEO will not tolerate a callback, nobody else will either. AI at work cuts both ways. It can help your team move faster, automate repetitive work, summarize information, and make better decisions. But it also changes the threat model. So adoption without guardrails is not a strategy, it is hope. If you want to know where your organization stands, take the free AI readiness score at vio.group in the link below. And if you want the companion episode on AI phishing, the email side of this same problem, watch that next. Deepfake calls are the new pressure point, but the defense is refreshingly old-fashioned. Slow down, verify on a channel you trust, require 2 people when the stakes are high, and remember, the call that asks is never the call that confirms. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.